about it. Oh, sorry. Did not realize we hadn't recorded yet. So today we're talking about insurance basics for cash-based practice, and it's really to help our clients out so that they can try to get reimbursed when they do have benefits. That's our motivation. So I'm Alicia Colmar, and I've been an occupational therapist for 20 years. I am married, and I have a family of one husband, one stepdaughter, and 3 cats, and a crazy police canine. And part of my why is the furry family. I started working in geriatrics and ultimately transitioned to school-based practice primarily. And what I just fell in love. I totally thought pediatrics was not my thing. And now, of course, that's like totally what I do. And I was working in a charter school one year, well, so for several years. And one of the things I got to do there was just be the school OT. So I was able to do whatever I wanted. I ran some groups, social skills groups, self-regulation groups, and it was so cool. I got to have peer models. Everyone was happy to participate. The whole school knew me. And when I decided to leave that job, I realized there's still a huge need for this. And I got great feedback from teachers and parents about it. So I decided to explore that a little bit and started my practice so that I could offer groups. And I still thought I'd do some individual therapy. Shortly after I signed my lease, this was in 2010, I was actually doing some school contracts. So I'd started part-time kind of doing my own thing. And then shortly after I signed my lease in 2015, I got a new school contract at a charter school. And suddenly had to hire somebody and got real busy. So I now have 6 school contracts. That's a huge part of my business. And they're all charter schools. And then I have some occasional things that I do in county schools when they need maternity coverage and that kind of thing. And I have an OT assistant that works for me. And when we're not having a pandemic, I do run groups. I think I did have one group actually this fall, and people were happy to sign up for that. So hopefully that'll continue next year if we all feel comfortable with it. And a lot of people end up going into individual therapy from the group. So some people start out that way and then they're happy with what they're getting and then they move into the individual. So they may not have necessarily thought of individual therapy first. So that's kind of my story and what I'm doing. I do probably a little more individual therapy right now than I am doing groups just because of the way things are in the world right now.
Crazy world.
It is.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erin Lindberg. I'm also an occupational therapist. I'm a wife and a mom of 3 kiddos. I've been an OT for about 18 years, and I've worked in probably every setting possible. And I've had my own private practice, cash-based practice for the past 3 years. And my specialty that I've been in for the last probably 15 years has been more holistic practice, working more with chronic pain, movement dysfunction, and then women's health as well. And I really approach that from a holistic approach as well, treating the whole mind and body as one, really getting to some of those mental health roots as well. And I got into my niche really from personal experience. I loved every aspect of OT I worked in. Geriatrics was my first too, and I absolutely loved it. But I got into more the holistic aspect of things with my struggle with anxiety and more of the women's health aspect of things from having 3 kids and gone through some of my own struggles. And before I opened my own practice, I was actually in management, stepped down from that, was working in an outpatient clinic, hospital hybrid type thing, hospital-based outpatient clinic. There we go. And I really was just burnt out. I had stepped down from management just with the burnout of with all the bureaucracy of corporate and in the insurance world. And I was just getting to the point is that, it didn't matter how much you did. The more you did, nothing ever changed. Someone could do really nothing and someone could do a lot. And, life was just the same. So, and people don't fit into protocols. And that's really how I run my practice. My practice is so individualized. A lot of people have layers. And so I just couldn't work with the restrictions of insurance and compliance and corporate bureaucracy anymore. And really that's what I started looking into, creating my own practice. And actually my practice kind of found me. I was getting asked so often. I had a long waiting list where I worked and it was hard to get in. And people just started asking me will you treat me on the side? And finally I was like, yeah, why not? So that's how I started, in the basement of my home. And that quickly, the word of mouth grew quickly, and my family was getting a little sick of it. So I opened my brick and mortar in June of that year and just worked it alongside of working full time. The following year, so after that 6 months, I decreased my hours to 32 at my full-time job and continued to work 32 to 20 hours that whole next year, my first full year in my brick and mortar, and eventually went all in. But in that first year, I was able to make 6 figures working it alongside my job 20 to 32 hours a week. So I just want to put that in there, is that, and granted, I did make sacrifices along the way, but I knew it was going to be a season of my life. But just so those of you know that it is possible to build a practice starting as a side gig, slowly building it up where you need it. So that's my story, and we'll get started. So the objectives today on what we hope you'll get out of this presentation is just learning the difference between in-network and out-of-network insurance. So technically, as an cash-based practice, I consider myself an out-of-network insurance company. So we'll learn about that. What clients there are restrictions in serving under this model, understanding the basic CPT and ICD-10 codes that are used to help get clients reimbursed, understanding the difference between an NPI-1 and NPI-2 number and what do you need, and then understanding what the super bill is and what's needed on that super bill to help your clients get reimbursed. And you'll learn and you'll see an example of some of those as well.
And hopefully some of that's not too jargony for you all, and you know what some of these things are, but please ask if you're not sure as we go along, okay? Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is in-network versus out-of-network. And the main difference here is that if you're in-network, that means you take someone's insurance, you bill that insurance for your client, and the thing that you have to consider here is that you have a contract with that insurance company. You're saying, yes, I will take only the amount that you allow for this service that I'm providing. And so, you know, you're really limited when you take insurance by that. And if you take, they say we're only going to give $100 for, you know, your hour treatment, you have to only accept $100. And so, and some of that's may come from your client because they have a copay or whatever, and some of that might come from the insurance company. So you've agreed to this. That's what they call the allowable amount. And I do think it's really important that we make sure that our clients take responsibility for knowing their benefits. You know, it's really not our job, whether we're in network or out of network, to tell our clients, you know, explain their whole benefits to them. But, you know, we do want to help them if we can. And that's really why we're doing this. So if you're out of network, you don't have any kind of relationship with the insurance company. You have no contract with them. You can charge what you want and what you're worth, what you deserve, which is more than what you can do when you're in network. You're stuck. So there's a little more flexibility to do, you know, follow the rules that you want to follow. Like Erin said, you know, people don't fit protocols, and insurance often wants us to fit them in that. So, clients often have benefits that are out of network and in network. And so, you know, when we can understand that, like somebody may have a deductible that's just one flat deductible, or they might have a separate in-network and out-of-network one. Which, I'm going to show you guys that in just a minute. I do want to just clarify for some of you who might have been working in a clinic, and to understand the difference between in-network, out-of-network, and what does it mean to be credentialed. So you might be able to bill under Blue Cross, for instance, because you're working in a clinic and you had to go through a process to get credentialed. This is my I should throw this in there at last minute information. So it's not the super most, this is Alicia definition, not maybe official definition, but it's really just proving that you are a worthy to accept clients, to you have the credentials to serve clients that are members of that insurance company. So if you are credentialed at a clinic somewhere and you have no contract, you don't have a business where you have a contract with that insurance company, then you are still out of network. So I think it's really important to understand that you might be working somewhere and wanting to start your own side gig, and you know, just because you can bill insurance in one place, if you're not the one holding that contract and that company you're working for is, you can still be credentialed and be out of network. I hope that made sense. But please ask if it didn't. So these are also some basics, which I think a lot of us know, but maybe you don't. So I'm going to go ahead and go over them. The deductible. This is, how much you have to pay out of pocket, how much your clients have to pay out of pocket. Some people have really high deductibles and some people have low. So you can see, I just took a picture of my benefits down here at the bottom. I have nice little deductibles, 250 in network and 500 out of network. And so, when you understand what's expected and what you're going to actually pay out of pocket, we can explain these things to people. And if you have a really high deductible, it's really important to understand that by the time your service is over, your deductible might have been met. You may as well see the person who's actually going to help you. So that's something that we can help explain to clients. The copay is like a flat amount that they're going to pay. So every time I go to the doctor, I pay 20 bucks, right? So, and then co-insurance is a percentage. And now I'm just going to tell you, now that I am in network with one insurance company that has co-insurance, it's a real pain to keep track of. It's like such a pain. But it's a percentage of whatever that allowable rate that they offer. One of the things I also want to mention is that there's something called a network gap exception. So if you are out of network and you have a client that comes to you and you're not in network with them and say they're going to need a ton of therapy, and you can see how much you can really help them. They may not have access to another therapist, or there's like huge wait lists or something like that. Sometimes insurance companies will set up a temporary contract with you. I don't know that much about it. And it's typically a lot of work and not worth it if you're not going to have put a ton of therapy into this person and ultimately get some money back from them. But it just gives them it can be something that can help your clients. I spoke with an ABA therapist recently who is exploring that for her, because ABA is like daily, multiple hours kind of thing. So that's called a network gap exception. It's a lot of work, but I just wanted you to be aware that it's out there. So even if you are out of network with someone, it's a way to be like temporarily in network to help your client, essentially. Are we at a good place to answer any questions? Do we have some?
I haven't seen any come through yet, but if you do have questions, you can either put them in the chat or the Q&A section.
Okay.
I think Kara posted in here as well.
Okay, thanks. Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything, since I can't really see that while I'm presenting.
So Janice is asking, should we ask the insurance companies about the gap exception?
That's like a special case situation. So it's really if you just have one person that can't find a therapist in the area and you personally can put some time into it, it's going to be something that you'll have to take time to do. If you're trying to get credentialed and get in network with an insurance company, it can take months. This is sort of like a speedier process. That's kind of temporary for one client generally. So at least that's my understanding. So it's going to take some of your time. So in general, unless you anticipate a very long plan of care with somebody, it's probably not worth your time.
All right. So do you take my insurance? That is the number one question in a cash-based practice that you're going to hear. And I shouldn't say always. I don't hear it much anymore. But initially, that is the number one question. And I just want to guide you a little bit through what that looks like on how to handle that question, because you don't want to start by just saying yes or no. The most important piece is starting to make that connection with the customer or the client on the other end before you ever give that answer, because most people calling you have no idea really what you're offering them or really why they're calling you. Sometimes their doctor has just said, you need to go see this person. And so if you can get them on the phone and just start by introducing yourself, and then ask them if they're calling for themselves or they're calling for someone else. Sometimes they're calling for a loved one, a family member. And then ask them how they heard about your practice and what is the specific motivation for calling you today. So, you can ask the reason, or, what motivated you to call them today. So get an idea of, what's going on. And then ask them how long they've been dealing with that particular issue, because you kind of want to know what's changed. Why now? Why are they calling you now? So if it's something that's been going on, obviously there's something underlying that has motivated them to call you now. And ask them what's preventing them from what is the condition preventing them from doing, or what's interrupting their life. You need to get down to those emotional heartstrings. Maybe someone has neck pain, but it's not just the pain that is disrupting their life. It's not being able to go to CrossFit. That's their outlet for stress. So it goes much more deeper than the actual physical symptom or that's going on. So you really need to find out what is that key motivator for them, and really get them talking about themselves. The more questions that you can ask them, people like to talk about themselves. So it's our job really to listen attentively and take it all in and really get to know them, because this is your first interaction with them. And if they do book with you, the more that you can know about them before they get there, they have so much more trust built with you already. And then ask them what they know about your services. Don't just start telling them. So what do you know about our practice or the services that we offer? And then if they don't know a lot, then you can start telling them about your process. What does the process of working at your practice look like? What can they expect on that first visit? And give them everything they get. Really show them that value of what working with you in your practice is different from the people around you or the businesses around you. And then you really want to sell the results. So it's not about I offer this, this, and this. It's we help people overcome this so they can do this. So you want to sell that outcome. We get you back to working out at your gym, whatever your focus or your niche is. That's what you want to sell them on. And just really reassuring that you understand them. You understand that they hurt. You understand what they're going through. And after that, then you want to explain to them, because it's going to get to the financial piece of it, is how do we pay for your services? And you want to explain to them that you're an out-of-network provider, which allows you to form a contract with the client versus the course of payment being determined by an insurance company. So you just want to explain what that being out-of-network means. And we talked about that a little bit in the last presentation, and Alicia just talked a little bit about that now. So your contract essentially is with your client. You and the client, you determine that payment structure and how you're going to get paid. And then you're going to explain how that works with a super bill. And we're going to talk about the super bill in a little bit. And you're going to explain that process to them. And I'm not going to explain that now because we're going to talk about that when we talk about the super bill. And then you're going to ask them if they'd like to go ahead and schedule an appointment, and just give them a couple options, one or two. You don't have to say, I'm wide open every day. You want to show them that you are a busy practice, and whether you are or not, because when you're first starting out, those of you that maybe are just opening a practice, you're not going to have a full schedule right away, but you want people to know that there's a sense of urgency to work with you. So you don't have to say, well, I'm wide open. So just give them a couple times. And if they are, if they're totally blocked, like they want an in-network provider and that's their block, then let them go. We need to get, like we said in the last presentation, we need to get beyond the point of needing to please everyone, needing to fix everyone, take care of everyone. And then you can connect them with a good in-network provider. So have your network that you can connect people with, because that really shows, that also builds rapport with you, that, what, they can't meet my needs here, but they're going to hook me up with someone that they know is the best. And then call that provider and say, hey, just want to let you know, I'm sending so-and-so your direction. She needs an in-network PT service, OT service, whatever. And they're going to return the favor to you. So even though, sometimes we get that, oh, we can't refer people on because we need the money or we need the business. But the more abundantly that you can think of passing that person on, really doing what's best for that client, it's going to come back to you full circle. And then also, like Alicia said, help them understand their insurance a little bit. It is not our job to completely explain their plan to them, but just help them understand that, sometimes I'll ask them like, well, what is your deductible of your plan? Some people have deductibles that are $5,000. So if you can help them understand that, 10 visits at my clinic is going to cost you $1,250. I'm just throwing a number out there. 10 visits in network is probably going to cost you $4,000. So you still haven't met your deductible, but I would save you $2,750. So just helping people understand that, and it's still going towards their out-of-network deductible, but they have more money in their pocket. So, and a lot of people don't meet their deductibles. So just putting that into perspective for them is helpful. So Janice is saying, can you repeat that? I'm not sure which piece you wanted me to repeat, but before I get going too much further, the math. So say someone has a $5,000 deductible, and say your practice rate per visit is $125. So 10 visits at $125 is $1,250 for 10 visits. That would go towards their out-of-network deductible. But say they have 10 visits in like an in-network clinic, and usually the visits there, because with your contract with insurance, you have to have a huge markup in order to make a profit. So like, for instance, when I worked at the hospital, our visits roughly, if they were paid cash out of pocket, were about $400 per session, for one session. So 10 times 400 is 4,000. So if they have high deductibles, you're going to save them money in the end. Even though their in-network deductible and their out-of-network deductible may be different, one is usually higher, but you're still saving them cash in their pocket. So the difference between $1,250 and $4,000, and I probably maybe did the math wrong there, but about $2,700. So hopefully that made sense. And so most people don't understand the whole insurance process and benefits. And sometimes that's just, when a doctor sends them something, they just assume that their insurance covers it. And the other thing is, if people are just hung up on the insurance that, oh, my insurance doesn't cover it, I'm not going to do it. Sometimes you have to think about, okay, how invested are they in their care too? If someone knows they're really going to benefit from something, they're going to pay. Some people I know they can't, and I totally understand that, but that's when we hook them up with someone that they need. But when people do have that investment in the care, they're more apt to follow through with the program and do the work that they need. And you can also, like I said earlier, be okay with those who are not ready to come to your practice. Yes, give them up and pass them on, and eventually they'll come back to you. And then also let your website do a lot of the answering of this. I don't like to put on my website what my rates are, because I want to talk to people, I want to get to know them, and I don't want people price shopping. But you can put the insurance question on there and explain why, explain your rationale on there. So let's move on to, are there any questions? Did you notice any other questions? Are we okay to move on?
No, there's questions here. If we are out of network, this goes back a ways. If we are out of network, is it best practice to bill the person and they get reimbursed whatever the rate?
Yes.
Definitely.
So,
yeah.
Yes, you want to get paid, and I have people pay up front. They have their session, they pay with me, unless you have packages. There's different ways that you can get paid, and that's a whole different webinar and training. But yes, they pay you, and then you'll learn now in the next section here, the super bill. They get a super bill, they self-submit that, and they get whatever the insurance company is going to pay them.
And then can one still have a cash-based practice even if they are credentialed with insurances, or are we required to bill insurances once we become credentialed?
Yes, so if you're in a contract with an insurance, so say you're contracted with Blue Cross Blue Shield, I'm just throwing something out there, and someone with Blue Cross Blue Shield comes to you and wants to be treated but just wants to pay you cash, if you're in a contract with that insurance company, you have to bill their insurance. But
there's a little story on that. Someone is online right now. Someone got in network with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they realized how awful the reimbursement rates were. So she fought hard and got out of that contract, thank goodness. But that's why I tell people you really need to understand what insurance and what their payments are, because it's a lot of work to go through to get credentialed, and then to find out you're not going to even be able to have a functioning business with what they're reimbursing you. And it took her a while. And Chelsea, I wasn't going to call you out. But it took her a while to get out of it too. And I don't think, like Chelsea's really good and gonna take care of it, but I can just see some people not being able to go through and fight getting out of that contract. So
Yeah.
Correct. And that's what in other presentations, it's you need to know what those contracts are. So you need to know your numbers. And I did a presentation before this on setting rates, and that all goes into, if your daily rate on what you need doesn't fit into that contract, don't do it. It doesn't make sense. And yes, contracts are very difficult to get out of. And not only that, oops, sorry.
we also find you can't find the rates out. I mean, that's what we have tons of people that you can't find out what the rates are in the first place because no one will tell. So
Correct.
that's a
But
struggle.
you should get that before you sign any contracts. And so before you sign the contract, you need to look and see what that rate is. And then you can choose not to sign it, even if you have gone through that whole process.
Yes, and not only that, but look in that contract to see if you're subject to rate changes, because there have been people who had phenomenal successful contracts with a certain insurance company. The next year, their rates changed significantly, and their business, that was their main carrier, and their business was so significantly affected because the rates were like cut by like 40 or 50%. It was ridiculous. So look for that in the contract too on changes in rates.
And a couple more questions.
Sure.
And well, just going back to Chelsea, she thought that she knew the rates, and then when they came back, they were different, I think was the story there. So it can be crazy. But another question is, what are the rules and regulations regarding what care can be cash-based and what needs to be billed?
Say that again. That one we might need a little clarification on.
Okay. What are the rules and regulations regarding what care can be cash-based and what needs to be billed? I'm guessing they're going with the Medicare and the mandatory claim submission for older adults. Medicare is really the only one that has that mandatory claim submission, isn't it? Alicia, what is the...
Yeah, that's part of what we'll get to too.
Yeah.
Medicaid.
We have that
potentially.
But if you are a hybrid, like I just said, and you are treating someone with that has something medically necessary, and like you can't, if that person has Blue Cross, they're carrying Blue Cross, and you have to bill their insurance. It's the same thing. You can't charge them a different rate. So, but we'll talk about that with the super bill too. You can have a contract with an insurance company, but you have to have the same rates. You can't say, well, this is my cash rate, this is my insurance rate. What you do is you still bill the same rate, but you can give them a cash discount when they pay. So that's the difference.
And then last one from the same person, hopefully we're answering your question. If your practice includes holistic integrative therapy treatments, yoga, and meditation programs for stress relief, can that be cash-based since it's not really skilled services or medically necessary?
Well, I'm going to challenge that a little bit. You got to realize that anything holistic is an intervention, okay? It doesn't matter the intervention that you're giving someone, it's what you're treating. So if that person has anxiety and high stress that's interfering with their daily function, their ability to take care of their children, their ability to work their job, that's medically necessary. And then it becomes a billed service. Now, if you are doing, so that's your tool in your toolbox, just like Therax or something like that. It's you're de-escalating the nervous system. But now if you're doing group yoga for general wellness, that's different. That's different. But I'm saying that if you're in network, but if you're an out of network and you're going to use those integrative approaches to treat someone's anxiety or stress, you can bill them cash because you're an out of network provider. Hopefully that makes sense.
Right.
One last question, I think we're caught up. If you are not enrolled with 80 insurance providers, are you required to bill Medicaid for services?
We'll get to that.
Okay. And oops, lied. Do insurance companies always follow their fee schedules? And is your private pay fee schedule the same as your fee schedule? I don't understand that one, but
Yeah, so your contract with your insurance company, each one's going to have an allowable rate so your fees are your fees. So, but if you have your fees low and your allowable contract rate is only, give an example, Alicia, like a good one versus
like $100, right?
This happened to me. My fee schedule was low, and Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Dakota is way over what I was charging my private pay clients.
Yes.
Luckily, with how it worked out, I got the full payment. But if I would have billed them, then I would have lost all that money. I mean, it was like $100 more. I mean, it's crazy.
Blue Cross of North Dakota is phenomenal. So say your fee schedule is $30 per unit. So you're $120 for an hour session, but your contract allowable rate is only going to pay you so much. You're going to lose money. So you need to make sure your fee schedule is high enough so you're going to get the amount of money that you need per visit financially that you've budgeted.
And if you're in network, I mean, and you keep that high rate, you just, this is what I do. I just write it off. Whatever's not covered by insurance is a write-off. So, yeah.
So, but going back to the fee schedule, if you're contracted with insurance, you can't say, this is my fee schedule for cash, this is my fee schedule for insurance. You have one fee schedule, and then you give the cash pay people a cash pay discount, is how legally you're supposed to do it. Because if an insurance company says, well, your fees are this, you can get into some hot water.
Yeah, and you don't want to charge too little, because then if insurance companies see that, and especially even as an out-of-network provider, then they may screw over the ones that are in network by reducing the rates to whatever it is you've got. So if people are doing super bills.
All right, so what is a super bill? A super bill is an itemized statement that you're going to give your client to use to self-submit to their insurance carrier for reimbursement after they have paid you. So you treat the client, they pay you, and in whatever increments that they need, you're going to give them a super bill. It's and then the document is either you can generate it on your computer, so it's a paper document, or your EMR can generate it. And what they're going to do is you're going to give it to them after each visit if that's what they need. Or in my case, I give them an itemized statement. And on the top, it says insurance statement for reimbursement. And mine is monthly. Some insurances are different. So it all depends on what their insurance wants. And you may not know that right away, but that's okay. You can always change it after the fact. But if they can find out right away, it's better, because it's going to save you some work if you've got to go back and give them individualized ones. So what they're going to do is they're going to submit this to their insurance carrier, and they may have to fill out another form with their insurance. Oftentimes my clients have to print out a form that they have to fill out with all their codes, and then they put the super bill with it, and then they submit it. Then what happens is either it's going to be applied to their out-of-network deductible, or they're going to receive payment. Usually, no client is denied coverage. They just haven't met their out-of-network deductible. So some people will call and say, no, we don't cover them. Well, that's not true. But some insurances, you do need to get credentialed with them. You're not in a contract, but they just want to make sure that you're a legit provider, like TRICARE. You can be an out-of-network provider with them, but they just need to verify that you're a legit business. And then their clients are usually reimbursed pretty well. And you're only giving super bills for medically necessary treatment. So if you're doing wellness with someone, you don't give a super bill for reimbursement. So if you think of a super bill, that's like your insurance claim if you're in network. Okay, that's the claim that you're going to use, saying that I have provided this medically necessary skilled treatment to this client that is reimbursable by insurance. And if some people in cash-based practice or out-of-network practice provide packages where the patients pay up front for a plan of care. So say you have a program, like you have a low back program or whatever, and they get 8 visits, and check with your state, because there are some states that you can't pay for treatment ahead of time for insurance. So you want to check with that. But In that case, though, if they have a package, you need to break that down per your CPT code on your super bills so they can get reimbursed appropriately. And on the bottom of your super bill, it should always say that the client has paid for the service already and that payment needs to be remitted to the client or to the carrier. Because sometimes it's happened to me multiple times that they keep sending me the check. So just make sure that says that on the bottom of it. And even if it does, sometimes you'll still get the checks, but usually it's easily correctable. And the amount that they receive is dependent on their individual plan. And when they call their insurance prior, their insurance carrier may not be able to give them that amount right off the top of their head. They can give them what their coverage is, and then it'll be based on whether they meet their deductible or not. But just make sure that is very clear in your payment policy that you do not guarantee payment from their insurance company. That's very important. Just what I say in mine is that I recommend if they are going to submit, I always ask at the beginning if they're going to submit, because then I want to make sure they get the super bills.
I do that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want them to check with their insurance company first, so they are a full understanding what they're getting into, and that I guarantee no payment. And then as far as, you don't need an MPI number, but it's good to have. Most insurance companies are going to want to have it. And we're going to talk a little bit about MPI numbers in a minute, so I'm not going to get into too much of it now. So what needs to be on your super bill? Let's finish super bill and then we'll go back to questions again. You need your client information. So you need the client's name, date of birth, address, contact information. Usually they're sending in something else with it, but I like to have the contact information on there in case they need to get in touch. Then practice information. You want your practice information on there. So your physical location of your practice, the address, the practice name. You want all your codes on there. So you want your ICD-10 codes, and these are your treatment codes. You are not a doctor, so we don't put medical diagnoses. We don't diagnose people, but they need our treatment codes, and we'll talk about that in a minute. We need our CPT codes for what we're billing. You need your tax ID. So if you're a sole proprietor, you're going to have your tax ID. If you're an LLC, you're going to have an EIN. You're going to have your license number and or your MPI number. So if you're a solo practitioner, you may just have your license number if you don't have an MPI number. Some insurances are totally fine with it. Others want an MPI number, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Some insurance companies want a signature on the super bill. Some don't. If you have a document that you use on your computer with the super bill, you can actually just put a picture of your signature on that. So when you print it, it looks like it's your signature is on there, electronic signature. If you have an EMR that produces them, unfortunately, you can't put that on there. But the ones of mine that need them, I just sign them for them. They bring them into me on their next visit. I sign them and they submit them, and it works just fine. The biggest piece that most people miss on super bills is you need your place of service code. And I put the codes on here if you want to take a screenshot of it. But if you're an outpatient facility, it's 11. If you're concierge or in-home mobile, you're 12. And at telehealth is 02. So don't forget those. And then you need the number of units of each CPT code, that rate per unit, and then the total paid by the client that was paid to you. Anything else that I missed on that, Alicia?
No, I think you were very thorough with that.
Okay, so on the next screen, you'll see a sample of a super bill. And I apologize, it's kind of hard to see, but this is one that was submitted that is automatically sent out of my EMR. So just to give you an example. And if you are a visionary member, I know we have like a Word or an Excel document of a sample on there.
Right. All right, should we pause for questions before we move on?
Yeah.
What are the negative ramifications you give someone their super bill and they do not submit it for reimbursement?
There is no ramifications. That's just up to them, whether they want to get their money back or not.
Have you found any insurance companies have asked for modifiers on the super bill?
Yep. But you know what? They're really good about it. So the one was through a postal service, and they told me what modifier they needed, and they just said, handwrite it on there on each charge. I had to write it on each charge. Really just, I think it was the geo modifier distinguishing that I was an OT. And just right on the top, this statement has been modified, and that's all I had to do, and it was done. So most of the time, they're really good about it, other than the time it takes to call them and figure out what they need. But yes, it's not very often, but there have been a couple times where I've had to.
Yeah. I have.
And then Sue just made a comment, telehealth can also vary depending on the insurance company. Some are requiring using 11 or 12, and that's for the location code.
Okay.
That's a good point. Yeah, it depends where the client is. Some of them are by where the client is, and some of them by where the therapist is, I think.
And then we have,
Thank you, Sue.
so group therapy programs can be cash-based. Is it better to be in network or out of network if one wants to start a hybrid business that integrates holistic and integrative therapies in their practice?
Is this a pediatric group therapy type question, or just group therapy in general?
Yeah, if you're listening, if you want to, I think she's the one that does like the yoga, would be my guess on that. So we'll come back to that one. On the super bill, do you also need a service address or just the place of service?
Service at, yeah. So if you see in the sample, I have my business and the place of service address. So that's my physical brick and mortar. But if you're mobile, I'm not really sure. Do you know, Alicia, what you use for? I'm assuming it's just your billing address.
Yeah, that's what I would say, is your billing address. And then just what they're really going to be looking for is your service code.
Yep.
And okay, so for the group therapy programs, Anonymous said yes. So was that yes to pediatrics, or was that yes to the yoga stuff? Let me know on that and why you respond. Abby's asking, also, do you have any tips on verbiage to use for in-home OT services versus home health? And are you talking geriatrics or are you talking pediatrics? For geriatrics, I mean, that's what I do. I have a couple different statements, but basically we provide outpatient therapy services in the comfort of your home. It's completely different than home health part A, where you have to be homebound.
And I think that's for pediatrics as well, because sometimes they don't necessarily look at whether it's a pediatric client or not, or an older client, when they're looking at that, private insurance is looking at that place of service code. Sometimes, you get people maybe aren't as well trained working at the insurance companies. So I think calling it outpatient, and it's going to depend, I think, on the actual insurance company, whether you can, what you're going to use as far as the place of service. Sometimes, I mean, I would do home to begin with if that's where you're going, but some of them may want it billed as an outpatient, as the office, which under the definition of the service codes, if you read them up on the CMS website, it says where you routinely do business if you put office. And so for some people that may work. And that may be what some insurance companies want.
Now I know this is a controversy, I can't say that word right now, question. Some people say one thing, some people say the other. So if in a community setting like a library or daycare or places like that, is it code 12?
Remind me which one 12 is.
That's the home.
Oh. I'm not sure what insurance companies accept for that, in all honesty. I think that's what I'm using. I haven't been through an audit, but that's what I've been using.
I think it also depends on what your insurance is.
Yeah.
I mean, it all depends on the situation. If you're supposed to be homebound, I would say would be controversial. But
Right. But if it's an outpatient service, I think that's probably what they're getting at a little bit more. I don't remember what I'm using because I do some of that as well. And I think either way, I mean, I probably wouldn't put home in all honesty. I probably would put the 12. I would probably put the outpatient for that, the office for that one. But it's a guess. I mean, it really depends on the insurance company. I think you need to, they need
I
to.
think I would put it as whatever your normal place of practice is, because it's no different than, you know, sometimes our outpatient therapists, they go to meet the person at the gym to use the pool for therapy. And that place of location is still coded as the outpatient
Yeah.
gym.
Yeah. That's what that's doing.
And we'll have to get some clarification on this, Sue, and you can pop in too, but for Medicare wise, if you're providing services in like the community or grocery store or things like that, some people say that's a non-covered service, so that would have to be private pay if, you know, you can't use that service code. So, but I've heard vice versa, so I need to, yeah.
I heard that too. And I think, you know, I think it's really hard to answer that question here because it really can depend so much on each insurance company. And I've heard mixed things with that. Some places are saying put this, some are saying put that. Just like the telehealth, some companies want you to put the location where the therapist is and some want where the client is. So, you know, we often have to ask. I've called insurance companies for that information before, but you know, that's something we can put on our clients to ask. You know, that I've had clients happy to do that so that they can get reimbursed if there's something I don't know, or I forget a zero at the end of my ICD-10 or something like that. They've called and asked, then I'm happy to change it. So
Yeah,
we take on more than we need to take on.
and that's the thing is some of these things aren't an end all be all. Like
Right.
they'll just say, hey, they'll let you know, and then you fix it. Because a lot of times,
Yep.
you know, sometimes they're just oversights, but yeah, it's one more step, but there is a lot of gray area with insurance sometimes because state to state, it's so different. But these are all valid and awesome questions, though, and things that we can try and figure out a little bit better.
Let's see. So the home health question was for pediatrics, and the group therapy question was for yoga or dance groups for stress management. So I don't know. That was the one. So group therapy programs can be cash-based, question mark. Is it better to be in network or out of network? That was that question. I don't know if you had anything.
Well, it really depends on the purpose. You know, if you are doing a group thing for general stress reduction, you're not treating each individual person differently. You're giving a general, it's like a lot of people go to a yoga class for stress management. Some person might go to it for a different reason, but to me, that's more of a wellness versus a specific plan of care intervention. And it all depends on, you know, I guess I don't know what your situation is. Are you in network with some insurances and out of network with some? Or do you have an all cash-based practice? And yes, that's totally fine. To me, that's more of a wellness service. If you're doing
I would just also add, it depends what your vision is for your business and where you really want it to be. Because if groups are really what like drive you and that's what you're really interested in, a lot of insurance companies don't cover groups, you know, so going in network is going to create more of a headache for you probably than not. If you really want a mix of individual and group, you know, then it's really up to you on how you want that ratio and how you want to deal with it. But I will say, if you do have a practice where you're going in network, coming from personal experience, because I am in network now with one private insurance and Medicaid, although a good chunk of my clients are cash based, it is a little more of a headache. I'll be honest. I was very pushy and got an answer to the question as far as whether groups are covered for my kids under the insurance company I am with. And they said, essentially everything's covered. Is literally the answer they gave me. So I've been able to bill for groups. So, but I think it's a per visit rate and with this company. And so I think it's a rare instance when that happens. It's more often than not, they're not covered. So just think about what you really want and what really drives you. And if you're going to do a combination of like therapeutic groups and wellness groups, that's mainly what you're doing. Then maybe it isn't worth your time to go in network.
What kinds of questions do you ask the insurance company to clarify the place of service question?
I don't unless it's an issue, but I'm all cash based. And if they have an issue saying, this claim is denied because of the place of service code, then I said, for me, it's not, there's no, I only treat in one spot, but I wouldn't make a big deal out of it until someone questions you. And then you just say, okay, you ask for clarification. Sometimes you can do as much research as you can do, and that's really all we can do. And we just have to interpret it on how we see it. And then
I completely agree with that. I'll be honest, if I were going to do it, I would probably just submit it with, if I was seeing someone in a preschool or somewhere in the community, I would probably put it as office and code it as that. And it's my outpatient services, it's covered wherever it is. If you look at the definition, it covers it. And if they come back, I'll fix it. So I feel the same way about that. Don't make more work for yourself than you have to.
If you code one thing wrong because you have the wrong number, they're not going to close your practice down or anything like that. We're all human and we're all trying to do the best. We don't start a practice thinking we're going to, I'm going to code this to get better reimbursement. We do our best, and you can do as much research as you can. And then if there becomes an error, then you fix it, like Alicia said. So
yeah, it's pretty easy.
This is more of a comment. Medicaid does not allow in-home therapy, only outpatient and teletherapy now. Let's see. Do you put the cash discount on this insurance super bill, or cash discount is only when you don't bill for insurance?
It's more, you don't put it on the super bill because that's your rate. Your rate's your rate. So you put it on your receipt. So when the person's going to pay you for that visit, you give them the cash discount. So this is only if you're an all cash practice, you really don't have to worry about this. But if you have a contract with an insurance, so say you have two insurances you contract with and you have set rates for them, your rates are your rates. You can't say, okay, these are my cash rates and these are my insurance rates, because that's kind of fraudulent. So then when they pay for their service, you're going to discount it on their receipt, because you're going to give them a receipt for payment. That's not what they submit. Your super bill is going to have what your rates are. So if you build them 3 units of therapeutic exercise and 1 unit of manual therapy, and your rates are $50 a unit, that's what's going to be on your insurance reimbursement form. Now they probably only paid you $200 because you gave them a cash discount. So that's how I've been informed to do it if you're contracted with insurances. But your discounted rate, though, can't be outlandish. I mean, you can't have your rates, you can't be giving everyone like 75% discounts, because that could look pretty fraudulent as well. So I would just be reasonable with your rates, just to be legit and legal.
So Erin, let's just say, for an example, if 97530 is $40.39 is what the participating amount is for Medicare, okay? So if someone sees, or if someone bills someone that 4 units, and obviously we hate odd numbers in this situation, but that's what the CPT codes are. So that's 161.56 for those 4 units, but say you only charge, your cash rate is $150 per hour visit. Would you deduct then, show that your discount is that 161 minus the 150? I'm just trying to give an example with actual CPT codes, because the CPT codes, if you use like Medicare or whatever, funky, but we, like, my fee schedule is higher than Medicare's rates anyways, so they're not funky like that. But I was just trying to give an example.
Yep, that's exactly what I do. And I kind of keep it, so my rates are all the same per CPT code, because that's just how I set them. But so say I contract with an insurance and I follow theirs, then I usually just do, I would just recommend that you have a percentage so if you pay cash, you get a 15% discount, after doing the math of, what's going to create a profit for you still. But
So
yes.
hopefully that helps. That's awesome. And yeah, like your fee schedules, like if you're say with Medicare or Blue Cross, like me, you want to make sure your fees are higher than that. Like Blue Cross is extremely different than Medicare rates. So I wouldn't want to go in between them. You want to go above the top one.
Correct.
I think that's it for questions so far.
Super. Thanks for monitoring those. We appreciate it.
Definitely. Good questions. All right, so I think most of us know what CPT codes are. If you've ever worked anywhere where you have to bill anything, you're going to need to know these. But if you worked in a nonprofit or something like that, or schools, you may not be as familiar with it. So these are the procedure codes. Every 15 minutes, what did you do in your therapy time? We break it down by 15-minute blocks, typically. So if you did ADLs, there's a number associated with each of these, right? So and I'm not going to say what they are, go into the details with that because you can look them up. AOTA has them. You can do a general Google search for them. There's common ones that we use that I listed here, but it's the number that this is what's going to go on our super bill to tell insurance company this is what we did. So, and this is where, there's it's kind of important to know what some of these are and things that aren't likely covered. For instance, I've billed for ADLs before in pediatrics and had that denied, but therapeutic activities it didn't make any sense. But that's kind of how it is. Sometimes that's just what you run into, but there's some codes that are really hardly ever covered. So, stick with some of these basic ones that I have listed here, typically. And then we have 3 evaluation codes now as well. So whether it's high complexity, moderate complexity, or low complexity, generally the reimbursement is the same through insurance. So it doesn't necessarily matter what you put that much, honestly, on your super bill. But when we're actually looking at what we're doing with clients, if we are putting our numbers down and say we spend 40 minutes with them, looking at this little 8-minute rule, is that 3 units? Is that 2 units? This is how we're breaking down the money that the amount that the person is spending with us. And so if we don't do all 3 units, 1 unit being 15 minutes, typically, and we go a little over or a little under that, we use this little chart here called the 8-minute rule to help us figure out how many units we're going to put on our super bill. So I don't want to get too into this because I think most of you probably already know this, but.
And if you are really all into a cash practice, you guys do what you want with this. The more picky you are, the more time you put into it, it's going to help your patients get reimbursed. But, if you just do your best, they're still going to probably get reimbursed something. So it's not something, if you're an out-of-network cash practice, that it's absolutely mandatory. It's just that how much do you want to help your patients get reimbursed?
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Exactly.
And then I did put that link, the billing and coding link, into the chat, Alicia.
Oh, great.
From
So
AOTA.
And AOTA has a wonderful website for a lot of this stuff. So a lot of information and handouts and things like that. ICD-10 codes, we're going to talk treatment codes. So this is what we are putting on our super bill. These are the diagnostic codes that demonstrate medical necessity. ICD-10data.com is what I often use to figure this out. If it's not, I usually use that more than my EMR, and it'll tell you often if it's a billable code or not. So you can easily see that. It'll tell you right there. It's not the most visually friendly website, but that does have that on there. So
there's some awesome free apps out there too, ICD-10 apps. I think I've used Quick ICD-10 and ICD-10 Consult are a couple that are helpful as well.
That's good to know. I use my EMR a lot of the time too, so because you can put it in there. But you really want to use something that's really applicable to your client, and just keep in mind though, we're not diagnosing and we don't diagnose, so we're not going to put anything on there that we don't see and feel like is appropriate for our clients. And you do want to be very specific. ICD-10s are 5 digits. Use them.
So for an example for that, so stiffness of joint is M25.6. Stiffness of a shoulder joint is M25.61. Stiffness of a right shoulder joint is M25.611. And then there's that seventh digit if it's an initial encounter or subsequent encounter. So get as long as you can, because a lot of my super bills come back to me. They're like, you need one more digit. They want to know if it's right or left. So get as specific as you can. And say they have right hand pain and left hand pain, put both. Don't just put general hand pain. So put both sides.
Yeah.
And there was a couple just quick questions on before we get too far ahead. We're going to have time at the end too, but there was just a couple here that I just.
Yeah, I missed a couple. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, that's okay.
They all like are blurring in here. One had a question on what is the main difference between an ICD-10 treatment code and a CPT code. And I think you guys covered that now. Sorry, I mentioned that earlier. Let's see. There was another one down here.
There was one on.
What were the apps for the ICD-10 codes? And we can maybe put those in the links below. And someone asked if they have to have a script from their doctor in order to get a super bill.
That's the one that I wanted to answer. That depends on their insurance. So that's why they have to call their insurance, because a lot of insurance companies now, they don't need doctor's orders as long as you have direct access. If you don't have direct access, obviously you're going to need a doctor's order. So it's up to them. So tell them to call their insurance prior and ask if that's something that their insurance requires for reimbursement.
And then there was another one on who should call. Let's see. Do you have families call their insurance company, or do you as a provider, if there is any issues that arise with reimbursement when submitting a super bill?
I ask my families to do it first, because you can spend a lot of time trying to chase stuff down for them. And that's why we're out of network. That's why we don't do that. We're not getting paid to do that. We're not getting the benefits of being, there's our benefits of being in network for some people, and we aren't getting those benefits. So I don't want to spend all that time. So I don't, I ask them to do it.
And yeah, I do the same thing. I absolutely last resort. If it's just like one thing, they don't know what a modifier is, then I call. Yeah. But prior to that, you put it on them.
Another question, does the eval have to have MD signature for reimbursement?
That all comes back to your Practice Act. So if you don't have direct access, whatever your Practice Act says, that's what you need to follow. The insurance companies have their rules and your Practice Act have their rules. You've got to follow both of them. So if you have direct access and you don't need either, or some you don't need a doctor's order, but you need a signed plan of care. Some you don't need either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and if you're
exactly.
If you're out of network, you're not going to know whether they need a signed plan of care or not, because you don't have to follow those rules. And so generally they're not going to be asking for that information. So you just give the clients what they need. And if they are told that, if somebody tells them that, then you can offer that and get that done for them. But in general, we're just giving them a receipt to get some money back. And they're not getting into all those nitty-gritty details of our documentation and all the things that we're doing and putting down in our notes with them and our evaluations. So
yes, good question. So
yeah, very good. All right. I had this up for a bit. So these are some frequently used ICD-10. There's a whole bunch, you guys, but these are the ones I've had the best luck with getting reimbursed, and that little zero has to be at the end of the R62.5. It's one of those that I got denied originally, but just there's other ones, and some of these I think F88 is sometimes also denied. So it really, again, depends. If it comes back and it's denied, you may have to fix that up. So not that big a deal. So we don't always know.
And these are a lot of other frequently used ones. And when you're thinking about using an ICD-10 code, guys, it's about what are you treating? Are you treating range of motion? Are you treating strength, coordination, tone, endurance? Those are your ICD-10 codes. It's what you are treating. It's showing that you're providing that skilled service to address something. It's not necessarily, it's not your medical diagnosis code. So like for me, so MS, you're not treating the MS, but you're going to treat their muscle dysfunctions or their ADL and dysfunctions. So I just listed a bunch here that I commonly use. And granted, I don't have all the digits here. I gave you ranges. So some of them, you're going to need that 5th digit for the right and left, so on and so forth. But if you want to take a screenshot for some of these, just so you have an idea, they are there for you to snap a picture.
Do it quick. Let's do the next slide. All right.
All right, so MPI 1 versus MPI 2. So to make this very simple, your NPI number is like your social security number as a medical provider. Every medical professional needs them. Dentists have them, nurses have them, doctors have them. As a sole cash practice provider, you don't necessarily need one, but if you're going to give a super bill, you got to have one usually. There's a website here. If you don't know if you have an MPI number, normally if you've had a job now that you've been credentialed with some type of insurance, in some places of employment, you're required to have the national provider number. So you can look on the registry to know if you have one. Your NPI 1 is your personal or your individual number. That goes along with your tax identification number. So if you're a solo practitioner or you're a sole proprietor, you have a tax identification number, which usually is your social security number, and then you have an NPI 1 number. So for example, Erin Lindbergh has an NPI 1 number. Now, an NPI 2 number is a business or a group number. That is if you have an LLC or a corporation, you're going to want an NPI 2 number. Even though, like for me, I am a LLC, but I'm the only employee. I have contract employees. I still have an NPI 2 number because my contract employees bill through that NPI 2 number as well. So, and if you think of your NPI 2 number, that is connected to your EIN number, which is your employee identification number. So NPI 1, personal, goes with your tax identification, which is usually your social security number. NPI 2, your group NPI number, goes with your EIN, which is your employee identification number for your business. So example for NPI 2, Integrative Therapies and Wellness has an NPI 2 number, but you apply for that NPI 2 under your NPI 1, so they're still directly connected. So hopefully that helps clear up a little bit about NPIs. And if you're contracted with any insurances, you have to have the NPI numbers.
Right. And you can put your NPI 1, you don't need the NPI 2. If you're a sole proprietor and just seeing clients on the side and giving them some, or you haven't made your LLC, and you can, even if you have, you can put your NPI 1 on your super bill. That's typically what mine defaults to anyway, so. Okay. So we've kind of touched on this already a little bit, but cash-based practices, we really need to know the rules and the law with public insurance. So we're not talking private insurance. Medicare, you have to be, you have to provide, I'm sorry, this is becoming an hour where I'm starting to get sleepy. Not talking so clearly. Okay, so you have to provide, you have to be a Medicare provider to provide any services to people who are 65 and older or who have Medicare. And I know this is what Kara does. She can probably explain it better than I can, but you can't just start seeing patients who have Medicare. There are rules around that. And Medicaid really varies from state to state. So you can't, there's no cut and dry, hey, Medicaid does this, Medicaid doesn't do that, because every state is extremely different. What they pay is very different. What their rules are is very different. It is completely different place to place. So you really need to understand what the rules are in your state. Now, there are some states that it's kind of like Medicare, where you cannot serve people who have Medicaid if you are not a provider for it. So if you are not like credentialed with them. My mom is actually a licensed clinical social worker and didn't realize that rule. She caught this and figured it out before it got too pricey for her, but she had to pay a bunch of people back for the services that she provided, because in Oregon, apparently, as a social worker, you can't serve clients with Medicaid unless you are a Medicaid provider and listed as a Medicaid provider. So it's an important thing to check into in your state. And honestly, a lot of states don't give you that information real clearly, but check that out if you are a Medicaid provider. I'm in North Carolina. I didn't have to worry about this at all before I was a Medicaid provider. I could see anybody I wanted. So I'll tell you North Carolina because I know that one, but the rest of them, I have no idea.
Just for time purposes, there's one question I want to clear up on MPI that someone had, but we're going to hold off on questions till the end because we're really going over on time right now. So we want to just finish things up. But NPI, she had asked, I have an NPI 1 number, but I have an LLC. The reason I recommend if you have an LLC to use an NPI 2, because that's only linked, it shows you as your business. Sometimes our NPI 1 numbers are still linked to insurance contracts from previous employments.
That's a good point.
So that's why I recommend if you have a business and you have new contracts, that use an NPI 2 number, because you know your business hasn't been linked to other insurance contracts with other businesses. All right, you want to go on with ABN?
Yep. So this isn't going to be relevant to anybody who for most people who don't have an insurance-based practice. ABN is an advanced beneficiary notice. And so this is something that you might use if you are in a state where, say, you do have to provide, you can't provide Medicaid services to Medicaid clients. So, but you offer a service that Medicaid doesn't cover. So for instance, you can do a group with them. This is something that you might need to offer your clients. It's a document that they sign that just explains that their benefits aren't covered. And you can use this for any insurance company. If you're offering a service that's not going to be covered by their insurance, this is something you'd want them to sign if you are a hybrid practice or you are a network as well. But honestly, I would do this with any Medicaid client. Even here, before I became a Medicaid provider, I would still have anyone that had Medicaid fill this out. I think it's a good question to ask just in case, so that they understand, because a lot of people who have private insurance tend to know their benefits a lot better than some people who don't, who have Medicaid, because rules can be very different with Medicaid than private insurance. And so it's just helpful to ask. I like to ask people if they have Medicaid before they start, even before I started taking it, so that I would still have them fill this out. So it's essentially something, this is very simple. The CMS website, the Center for Medicare website, actually has one you can download for Medicare, but I'm not saying you can do this for Medicare because they just still have special rules. But there are things that there is a template on there that you can modify if you want to. Not very pretty, in all honesty. You can take a screenshot of this one too. It's a little bit better. And then I have them sign this. It's basically, this is why your services aren't covered. Either it's something like, say it's a group that your insurance company doesn't do, or they've already used up all their benefits. So they're going past their 30 visits, or they're going whatever number, that kind of thing. And that way we can give them a heads up so they understand what they're getting into. So for most of you, that's not going to be relevant. So don't really worry too much about that. Just if you are in a state, you're in cash practice, and you're in a state where you can't serve Medicaid clients, that's when you might need to be aware of that. And just some additional information. The OTA modifier, reduced pay for OTA is coming up. That is something that you may need to be aware of with super bills if you have people working for you. AOTA has a lot of videos to help you out with some of these things too, if you are learning more. Their website here has a lot of resources. So if you're looking for ICD-10s and you're looking for CPT codes and lists that are frequently used in OT, and I'm sure physical therapy is usually more organized with this kind of stuff. So those of you who are PTs probably have that too. Speech, I'm not so sure how you all organized you all are with your national organization with these kind of thing. But on AOTA, you don't need to be a member, I think, to access most of this stuff. So that is that.
Awesome. So what's next? We are going to do another free webinar. Just one thing with going into a cash practice, some people have some deep-rooted money beliefs that make it hard to accept money. And not only that, but when you're in your own practice, you are your brand, and people get funny. Like it's like there can bring up some feelings of you don't think you're worthy of it. You know, you're okay making $400 a visit for a company, and you have no problem. But when it comes to you and asking for money, it brings up some deep hidden beliefs about money. So money mindset is so important. And not only if you have a cash practice, but just in business in general, because you have a lot of worth in you and education and so much stuff. So getting over some of that money mindset is phenomenal. This is also going to be a big course piece of our program coming up as well, which is the long-awaited cash-based business builder. So what Alicia and I have done is we've created a step-by-step guide to launch you into your solo out-of-network business with paying clients within 12 weeks. Whether you want to start a side gig or go all in, we're going to give you the step-by-step guide on how to do that in 3 phases. One is going to be taking action with confidence, and this is building that mindset so you can be confident in starting a cash practice or out-of-network practice. So phase 1 is going to be your business basics, getting you up and running and holding you accountable to that. 2 is becoming efficient and effective. This is where we start working on systems. You need to be able to have systems on making offers if you're going to get clients in and different things like that, being financially efficient. And then phase 3 is sharing your niche. And that's more about marketing and using testimonials and having your clients market for you. So that is a little bit about the business builder. And what's included in our business builder is number 1, accountability. And this is, I don't know how I can stress accountability is the most important thing, I think, in a lot of different things. So you're going to have 3-month access to a private Facebook group for daily support and Q&A. So Alicia and I will be answering questions on a day-to-day basis so that you feel like you have someone along the way there. You're also going to have 1-month access in the grad group at the end of the program. And then you're going to have a Trello board education, and then you're going to have a Trello board to use to keep you on task. This is one of the systems we use for organization, time management. We'll have monthly live group coaching via Zoom, so they will be live in a group format, and you'll get a 1-year membership to the Next Level Visionary group, which is rich with so much information. You're going to get a cash-based practice policy and procedure manual, which will be customizable to you, but that will be included. You're going to get a My Business Journal and action workbook. This is going to be a guide for you to keep all your brainstorming, your business plan, your passwords, your numbers, the things that we give you. It's going to be all in one place, so you have that accessible. You're going to have a resource library. A lot of these forms and templates and all this stuff that we just threw at you, that's going to be all compiled into a resource library. So say you want an EMR, we're going to give you multiple different resources. So you can find the one that works best for you. What Alicia and I use may not be what you want to use, but we want to give you those resources and help guide you through that. We're also going to give you sample templates. So some of the templates you saw today, the ABN, the super bill, the intakes, generic intakes, because everyone's going to be of different backgrounds. We can't give you specific, but there's going to be templates that you can take and create, make your own. And then there's 12 modules and trainings for life. So there's going to be small mini videos within these modules, and they're not going to be long, lengthy. We're going to give you short and sweet, to the point, what you need to do on a weekly basis to get your business up and running, so you can be your own boss and have that job security you've been looking for, which kind of segues in to the next thing is, who is this for? This isn't for everybody. So if you will flip over. So if you have had that thought or feeling in your heart that you want to start your own business or be your own boss at some point, but you just didn't know where to begin, so you've just been held back, this is for you. I can't stress enough that if you have had that feeling, to act on it. It's having a cash-based out-of-network practice can be a very, very low investment, and you can start it as a side gig. And then I would encourage you to act on it. Or you want to say yes, like I did, to those people that were asking you, can I work with you on the side? So maybe you finish up therapy and they're like, can I continue to work with you on the side? Or you should be able to say yes to those. Have that cash in your pocket. Or you want to make sure you're legit legally, professionally, and financially. You want to provide the most valuable individualized care for your clients, not what your compliance department is dictating or insurance companies are dictating. You want professional, financial, and personal independence and autonomy. You want job security. No one is going to look out for your back other than you. You may think that, I need to have this full-time job for security. Well, I tell you what, my coach always told me, he's like, I'm sure you have been on the chopping block many, many times. And even now more than ever with COVID, people are losing their jobs. And you want to be challenged to create an avenue for growth personally and professionally. There is no better personal growth than having your own business. And yeah, sometimes it's a struggle, but it is so awesome. And then who is this business, or who is this program not for? Or more so, I would take caution. If being a business owner isn't for everybody, and if you're not one of these, I would really think about it, do some deep thinking. So if you're not an action taker, I would steer you away from opening a business. You can't open a business and not talk about it and tell people and be out there doing, because you need to tell people about your business and be doing and working on your business. The number one thing is creating those relationships and telling people and how you can solve their problems. If you're looking for a get rich quick fix, this isn't for you. If you're not willing to make some sacrifices, like when I talked about my story and how I made some sacrifices because I knew it was a season of my life, that's what business is about. Sometimes you have, your social schedule may change a little bit. Everyone's life is different, but there are some sacrifices. You're not willing to leave your comfort zone. Having a business is getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And but that's where a lot of that personal growth comes. You'll find a newfound confidence, and it's pretty amazing. Or you're not willing to ask for support and advice. You can't do it on your own. No. And I've had how many coaches in my 3 years? I've spent over $50,000 in different coaching, business, personal, professional. And we don't want you to have to go through all that to figure it out. When a lot of us started businesses, there wasn't resources out there, especially for OTs. And we wanted to take all of the money and time that we put into figuring out this all out in something that you guys can use and get done quicker.
Yeah, because you don't know what you don't know. We know now what we didn't know. Some of it we learned the hard way. And a lot of this is really to help you cross your T's, dot your I's, make sure you're not missing any steps. And the amount of time that it takes to make a policy and procedure manual, put your forms together and figure out your systems and all those things, we're going to walk you through that. So just the amount of time that you save, as well as what you're going to learn, is huge.
So if you want to be your boss in 2021, we are launching in January. We're looking at starting around that third week in January. It's going to be 12 weeks in duration, and it's limited to 12 people. And a third of that is already filled up from a previous webinar we did. So if you are serious, I would jump on this now, because we are only going to take 12, because we want to make sure that you have the accountability that you need to be successful. So we only want serious people who really want to get moving. And when I say that, it's not necessary, it's that you're going to put the time that it takes to open a practice to it. And I'm not saying that it's going to be 10 hours a week. It may be around 2 hours a week, but if you don't have the time to work on something, you can't expect it to happen or be successful. So there has to be some of a commitment. And some people say they don't have time, but if you really want it and if it's your dream, you'll make time, you'll schedule it in. And the other thing that we're asking is that these 12 people at the end, that they provide feedback, because we want this to be the best program out there to get people started on this out-of-network practice. And we're offering a limited time offer. It's $2,497. And this is going to be good through the end of this year of 2020. We are doing another free webinar, and we already have a third of it filled. So if it fills from this webinar, you guys are in, and then it's going to be closed. So just knowing that we are going to continue to promote it through the end of through the next webinar as well. So if it's something that you're ready to do, the link, I believe Kara put it into the chat. And I know there's loads of other questions, but all of this is going to be included in this program. And there will be a grad group for continuing coaching and Q&A and help after the program ends. So I don't want people to feel like, okay, you get to the program and then you're just left out there high and dry. We want to continue that support for people. And we know that some people may already have a business and don't need all 3 phases. And down the road, this first time we're just taking the 12 and we're going through the whole program, but down the road, we may be able to split those phases up where a certain bunch comes in on the 2nd phase or just the 3rd phase. They just need that marketing piece. So that's why it's broken up like that. So anything else you wanted to add, Alicia?
Just that we've put a lot of work into making sure all the details are in this, and we're gonna be very efficient with it so that you don't have to spend any more time than necessary to learn what you need to learn. And we're just super excited about it. This is going to be such a great program. I really wish this was available when I started mine, because I have had to learn a lot of things the hard way. So it's a great opportunity.
And I am just going to chime in that it will never be at this price again, because I was telling Alicia and Aaron that what they have put into this is way more valued than $2,497. And just to give you perspective, I mean, like, some people sign up for, like, say, the Skills to Care certification program that I recently took. That was $2,000. This program here is going to literally make you money and save you a ton of money, because you're going to be doing things the right way. And you're not going to be wasting your time trying to figure all of this stuff out on your own. Plus, you have experts. I don't know if you guys know this, but Alicia, I had found her way long time ago, and she was like my mentor before I even made the leap into the whole private practice world. And just, I mean, you're not going to find anyone better than these two to take you guys through this program. So, but they are adamant about the 12 people, just because they want to make sure that this is, you know, the best, so we can make improvements and move forward. But yeah, sorry, Facebook people, I will post the link on Facebook right now.
And if you have questions on the program, does anybody have questions now? We can answer a couple. Otherwise, Kara, should they email which email address do you want them to send questions regarding the program?
Just send questions to, just do it to, it's easiest, Kara@nextlevelot.com. And you will hear back from Alicia and Aaron and I about the program if you want to reach out to us separately.
Okay. I just put Kara's email. So if there's any questions, we'll answer them now. If not, yeah, just email them to Kara@nextlevelot.com.
There, now I can see questions. Okay. I'm not sure if the questions in my Q&A box have been answered.
I don't have a business yet. However, I am interested in opening a practice with individual therapy that's medically necessary and a wellness program on the side. Would it be possible to bill insurances for the individual medically necessary treatments and charge cash for wellness groups programs? Yes, and that'll be part of the Business Builder program as well. So I think we'll just, I don't see any other on the Business Builder program. Okay, do you offer 10 to 15 minute consultation meetings to discuss if the program is right for you? Yes, because we would much rather spend, 10 to 15 minutes talking with you versus you getting into a program that's not right for you. So absolutely. If you want to email that email address, Kara@nextlevelot.com, we'll get something set up, because we only want people in here that are ready to go and that it's appropriate for you. Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that's it. I appreciate all of you that took the time to hop on here. We hope we cleared some foggy areas up that you may have regarding business and cash base and in-network, out-of-network. And thank you for those of you that stayed on. We know this went a lot longer than it had anticipated, but yeah, we're really excited about the program. We're really excited for all of you to start following your dreams and to have that independence and autonomy you want, both personally, professionally, and financially. So thanks again. Have a good night. And we look forward to setting up some individual calls with you if you have more questions on the program, or just send them to Kara@nextlevelot.com.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, Alicia.
Bye.